All right. Hi, class. I am here with an awesome teacher, Miss Emily Waterbury, and we are going to talk about her process to becoming a special education teacher. So, Emily, I'm going to throw it over to you and go ahead and introduce yourself to my class, and then we'll get into my students' questions.
Okay, hi class. My name is Emily Waterbury, and a little bit about my process in becoming a special educator. I actually started out at a nonprofit, non-public organization at a school just for special needs. I was a TA there. And I had just finished my undergrad for liberal studies. So I was working towards being a general education teacher. But as I stepped foot in the special education setting as a TA, I quickly fell in love with that setting. And because I passed my CBEST test, I was able to also be a substitute. So I was able to substitute in the elementary, middle, and high school for moderate to severe classes. And from then, like about 8 months later into the school year before the next school year started, I went into a dual credential program and was working on towards getting my credential, where that same school, non-public school, offered me a classroom. As long as I was getting my credential, I was able to be a provisionary teacher. So I kind of jumped in into the deep end right away. I was teaching and getting my credential at the same time, and my master's as well. Oh my goodness. And through that whole process, I realized special education is where it's at. I wanted to do dual special and gen ed, but my heart now lies with special education. And 3 years later, I am now teaching a special day class at a charter school for 3rd through 5th grade. So it's a little bit about my journey.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to ask you a couple questions from my end, and then I'll get into my students' questions. Just curious, why did you end up dropping the gen ed portion and continue on specifically with special education?
Okay, yeah, good question. I believe that the special education, not curriculum, but just the way special education is taught, the supports that we give to students, we really take note of what types of learners they are and how they learn best and implement that into our teaching. And I fully believe that it shouldn't be just special ed taught that way. Gen ed should too. And I really enjoy the relationships I'm able to build with my students and advocate for my students who cannot advocate for themselves. And just the style of teaching in general is something that I really favor versus the general education classroom.
Yeah. Would you say that you can be a little bit more hands-on in special education?
Oh, definitely. You can be more hands-on, you can be more playful. You can, like, there's times where I'm getting down and silly with all my students, and that's just who I am naturally. So I think I gel better with that type of program.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to get into my students' questions. So the first one is, what advice do you have for someone that's trying to become a special education teacher? It's a good question.
Oh, great question. There's a lot I could say. But really the most not influential thing, but thing that really needs to for all special ed is that don't take anything personally. Through parents, through students, through staff members, don't take anything personally, and always remember why you're there. You're there for the students. Again, you're their advocate when they can't advocate for themselves or don't even know how to understand or process what's being told to them or expected of them. Just remember why you're there and don't take anything personally.
Absolutely. I agree with that too. Another one of my students says, when or what was your first inspiration to realize you wanted to become a special education teacher?
Oh, like the moment I stepped on a SPED campus, um, just the students, the forgive my terrible terminology, but the vibes that the
That's
students
terrible. That's the truth. But I say that to my students all the time. It's okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
No, but it's a whole different world. And, it's, although there's times of, where you just like, sometimes you just don't know what to do, or don't know how to handle a situation, or don't know how to get through to a student, especially if there's a communication disconnect or a cognitive disconnect there. You know, the way that you figure out how to communicate, you can be very creative, and it's just so much fun. So as soon as I stepped onto that campus, I realized I was in my element, and I was able to really like make relationships and communicate with the students well.
Awesome. Yes. This is a great question coming up. I'm just going to forward it.
Okay.
What are the what are two things that you have not learned or been taught in the books before becoming a special education teacher?
Oh, so many, everything, literally.
Right? Literally the whole kitchen sink.
I'm sorry, class, but like so many things. You know, they teach you about classroom management skills, but you don't know until you really like figure out a thing that works for you. Yes, you know, you're equipped with certain regimens and certain, you know, attention getters. Forgive my dog, she's eating in the background. I'm not sure if you can hear that.
Real life, we got dogs.
Yeah. But you know, there's things that you're prepared for and that you can try to do, but until you get there yourself and figure out what works for you, you're always learning things. One of the things that really is like IEPs. Yes, you go over IEPs in the SPED process and learning how to like write an IEP and what they are, but really getting into a meeting and having, you know, your admin there, a gen ed teacher, the parents, if the parents have an advocate, you know, navigating that type of meeting, especially because it's very important. You know, it's a legal obligation that we provide for these students. So it was a little intimidating at first, but once you get the rhythm down of how to do it and why you're doing it, it becomes a lot easier. And that goes for pretty much anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's education in a nutshell, right? It's like you can learn one thing in a book and then it'll never ever come up in your classroom, or vice versa, right? So it's so interesting. So yes, you will learn a lot through your student teaching, as well as just from your mentor teachers, right, too, and just the folks that are, you know, that you're working with, like your admin, like you said as well. All right, next question. This is another one. And I know your answer already. Is art implemented into special education? And what type of art? And what type of art assignments or activities can you do?
Oh, okay. Yeah, art is definitely implemented. And you as a teacher, you get to choose when art is implemented. Like today we did science, but we also did art with our science. And then, so it depends really on like the school and the district. So at the non-public school that I was working at, we had an art teacher. And so the art teacher was in charge of, you know, the curriculum and providing the lessons and the hands-on stuff. Where I'm at now, I'm the art teacher, the music teacher, science, social studies, all of it. So I am very lucky that I love art, first of all, and I get to choose what I teach. Sometimes we go down like Kandinsky and Pablo Picasso and we learn about artists, and other times it's just, let's throw paint on a canvas today. So we get to pick and choose, at least from where I'm at.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. And then, so a couple of students have asked something similar to this question. So it says, describe a day in the life of a special education teacher and what would be your favorite part of it?
Oh, okay. I like this question.
Yeah.
A day in the life is never the same. If it's the same, something's probably wrong.
True.
Or there's a sub there.
Yeah.
But typically, you never get, no, you always get tired of hearing your name. You never not hear your name.
Yeah.
I always tell my students, if I had $1 every time they said my name, I would be teaching from a yacht with my bags full of money behind me.
Absolutely.
But a day in the life is pretty hectic, kind of very noisy. And, you know, a lot of tattling, especially where I'm at, 3rd through 5th grade. You know, there's some incidents here and there communication skills between students aren't always the best. So you are a mediator a lot of the times. So-and-so said this, they really meant that. That processing again plays into that, especially in social interactions. So more times than not, you're mediating disputes or telling each other or telling someone a compliment when they thought it was, an insult. And my favorite day or my favorite thing about the day is, well, when something clicks for a student, always that's a beautiful moment for me. But when I see the students interacting and positively, today specifically, one student had a hard time reading something on the board, and finally he pushed through. We were helping, and another student said, "Hey, good job, David!" And I'm like, oh, my heart just melted. So moments like that, especially if they bicker a lot and they have those sweet moments, that's when I just love it.
Yeah, I love those moments too. It's like the aha moment, right? You see the light bulb turn on. That's always a nice thing to have when you see that happen. Next question is, what are some challenges faced as a SPED teacher?
There's quite a few. And again, that goes back to don't take anything personally, or try not to take those things personally. Challenges can come with parents. Challenges can come, a moment where a kid has an accident or an incident where they can't regulate themselves enough, where they get angry and aggressive, and get in a fight. It varies on the daily, it varies for the student or family. There's challenges with admin. A challenge that I face, I teach 3rd through 5th grade, where a lot of students are at different levels. I have some on kindergarten levels. I have some on alternate curriculum, so they're not receiving the general education curriculum. And I have some students who can read, some who don't. So navigating how to deliver my instruction, as well as provide homework that's differentiated, and provide lessons that go along with all of these different needs. It can get really challenging. But again, learning from it, finding those systems really help with that. It takes time.
Awesome. What were your favorite classes that you took that you think helped you become a better special education teacher?
My classroom management. I don't remember any of like the names like 208 or whatever. I don't remember any of that. But my classroom management, that class really helped me out because it actually it helped me with systems. It helped me with reward systems, token economies, on how to get students to have behavior that you want to see often, as well as even down to how to set up the classroom, where to put desks, where to put the teacher desk. That really shone a light to how I teach and how to maneuver through the classroom. Art classes, just because I love art, but also figuring out how to make it transferable to my students specifically. As well as the testing, assessment. As much as they were boring, they were very, very helpful.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so interesting you talk about classroom management. It's just so much of this year, my 17 hats that I wear. But one of them, that's the biggest thing that I'm seeing teachers really struggle with, is that classroom management stuff. And just like you said, having a basic system and something that works for all of the students is something that people are really struggling with these days. So I think that's huge in regards to someone that's going to become a teacher is just your classroom management. So yeah. Another one, this is a good one, especially for right now, as we are gearing towards the end of this very, very, very long school year, right? Is that what are some self-care practices that have been helpful for you?
Don't take work home.
There you go. Uh-huh.
Once the laptop closes and that my classroom door shuts, I do my very best to not bring it home with me. On the weekends, I like to prep. Sunday, I like to prep for Monday and know what I'm getting into and remember, okay, yeah, this is what I planned, so I'm not totally caught off guard when the week comes. But I try my best, very best, not to take work home. And to get outside of the classroom. If I know, like if I'm in the classroom all day, if there's isn't incidents happening or whatever, and I haven't even stepped foot out of the door, I try and take a moment and eat my lunch outside, or ask, hey, I'm gonna go walk to the bathroom, take the long way and walk in the sun, to kind of recharge and get a moment to myself when I'm at work. But afterwards, don't take work home.
That's a good one. Is there anything that you do specifically that you would consider self-care, like weekly, something you do for yours, or even daily, that you would consider self-care?
Oh yeah, I always once a month I schedule a massage right after work. So I go from work to massage, or yeah, or something as simple as, like, I'll take my dog out for a walk, or schedule a night out with friends or a friend to go grab dinner, drinks, or something like that. So I always try and like schedule those things, especially if I know I'm having a heavy week, and I can the next week after I'll try and get some social time or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. All of those things are wonderful. I think I need to get up on the once a month massage thing though.
Yes.
I think I need to
Yes.
get that in my life.
I have a membership to this place, and if I don't have it like one day, then it rolls over, and I can.
Hey, that sounds great. All right. Let's see. I'm just looking through. There's a lot of similar questions, as I'm sure you understand. Let me pull up another one. This is a very interesting question. How would you build a relationship with a parent who becomes frustrated, and whether it's justified or unjustified?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, so it's hard to like put into words, because it's more so actions and how you listen and what you say.
Mm.
Um, there's a parent that specifically comes to mind, and Nikki, you worked with her very well.
Will do. Yep.
Very closely, and you still do. Yes, yes. And she did not want to hear what I had to say. She did not want anything to do with me, and later she started to receive me. It took some time, and know that it will take some time, but again, it goes back to your words and how you listen, because these parents want to be heard. They have so much struggle enough, especially if with a SPED student or SPED child, they already have so much on their plate. And so the last thing they need is, a teacher they perceive isn't doing what they should. So my advice is to listen, to hear them out, validate their experience. It may not be true. You don't have to validate what they're saying, but they are experiencing it. So you validate their experience and say, okay, what I've seen that works for me is, how do we combat this together? What works for you, and how can I mirror that here in the classroom? Or how can we as a team, because our goal is the same thing, and remind them our goal is the same thing. We want what's best for my student, your child. How can we get to this point?
Yes. And I think that's a process that it takes a long time for a lot of people to get really, because it is tough sometimes when you have parents that are frustrated, or
Yeah.
no one has really reached their child, or
And it's
they don't
year
have
after
friends,
year,
or
new
all yeah,
teacher. Yeah.
absolutely. It is. And I think you're right when you talk about the active listening, right? And being able to just allow someone to just get it out and to vent. I think that for me, that has always been really helpful, is that I don't put my 2 cents in until I've heard their side at least. And I think that that's absolutely true. And I think that, there's always going to be tough parents, right? Because there's mama bear or papa bear or whatever that's protecting their child, but it's those parents though too, that they always remember, of course, but then also it's like, how do we reach them? And I think that, you do that very well. And you're able to connect with your families on a different level than some other teachers that I've seen. So I think open communication in general, that you value that. And also the parents do too. So
I might have to add this too, or I'm going to add this too.
yes, please.
If there's fault, if you're at fault, admit that you're at fault. There has been times where I mess up and I'm like, you know what? I am so sorry. That is my bad. I won't let this happen again, or whatever. But that's a big part too. If
But
there's a
you're
fault.
human, right? You're human. We
Exactly.
all make
Exactly.
mistakes, and
Mhm.
We forget things at times. Like, you have
Very easy to forget so many
how
things.
many students do you have currently right now? Like
Yeah,
all of
15
them, including
on
your
the
RSP
roster.
kids? How many
Yes.
kiddos do you have in your
Oh,
classroom?
there's 15 on my roster.
Right,
Yeah.
including your RSP kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to remember in regards to every little thing that comes across your desk, really, right? Or doesn't come across your desk. So,
Right.
yeah, definitely. All right, these two questions are actually pretty awesome. So the next one says, what was your aha moment that made you realize this is the job that you wanted to do? Was there like a story or that like boom aha moment for you?
Uh, it's funny. I've always wanted to be a teacher. Ever since I was little, I always wanted to be. I would sit my brother and all my stuffed animals in the room and like say, 2 + 2 is 4. And so I always knew deep down, like I wanted to teach, lead, inspire. Those are the things that I love to do. So, whether it's in front of a classroom, in front of a group of athletes, whatever it may be, I am drawn to be a teacher, a leader, or whatever. That's how I feel. Always have. So naturally, my school journey, my undergrad, post-grad, all those things led towards teaching. And as soon as I started, I felt it felt so natural to me. So I'm not sure if there's a aha moment exactly. It just felt very natural to me in
Yeah.
my experience. Yeah.
Aha moment was in kindergarten when you were teaching.
Yeah, like when I was 3 years
Yeah.
old,
What,
wanting to
hey,
go to school with my older
that's
sibling.
pretty, that's pretty great that it happened so
Yeah,
early
I
for
guess
you.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a really good question for you specifically. I like this one for you. It says,
Okay.
what would your future self like to accomplish either in your personal life or in your professional career?
So many
I
things.
know.
Where do I begin? Again, back to lead and inspire. My future self uh, just wants me to figure out how to inspire anybody and everybody to want to learn, to continue to learn, to see the beauty in education and learning from each other. I don't know where my journey will take me. I just know that it's going to be maybe in education. I say this, I want to stay in education if I can, but but my hope and my future self wants and craves for me to just teach and inspire however that needs to happen. Also changing the education system, but that's a really long rant for me and all the things that need to be changed in the education realm, um, including like state testing and all that. We're going through that this week, so that has a lot.
I talk to my students about most of the racist exams that we have still. We talk about it in class, so it's okay. So we understand that a
All
lot
of
of
it
these,
change.
a lot of these tests do nothing but set our kids off, right?
Yeah.
And push them to, and also, we know that they're not going to do very well on a lot of them, or are they going to even be able to sit there and actually do this type of testing? It's like, is it that fair? Not necessarily,
Not
right?
worth it. And what does it determine? Absolutely nothing.
It
That
determines
test
how
is
much
not.
money your school gets, right? So,
Ugh,
yes. Mm-hmm.
not how it should be, in my
No, I agree with you on that. We definitely, we think very similarly in a lot of ways, though. So, yeah.
opinion.
So Emily and I have actually worked together, what is this, 4 years now? So
Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
5 years, like pretty
Mhm.
directly for the last 4 at least. So it's pretty crazy. So I watched her process unfold from becoming a TA all the way to a
Yeah.
special teacher, which has been pretty incredible to see and witness and be a part of. So thank you for letting me be a part of your journey. So
Thanks for being a great part of it.
hey, all right, let's see. I'm just kind of floating through some of these questions. A lot of them are like similar, like I said. So
Okay.
let's see. We're just about done anyhow, too. A lot of them are asking you what is the hardest part of your job and like how do you cope? That's a good question. How do you cope with the hard parts of your job?
Yeah, some of the hardest parts of my job is discovering what goes on at home with these kids.
Mm,
It's heartbreaking, and it's helpless in a small sense. You can only do what you can do. If you have to report, you report when you can. But once they leave and go home, they're not your responsibility anymore. And that sometimes is really difficult to know and to understand.
Absolutely.
And um, I talk to my colleagues, about some of the things, and them being there is very helpful in, coping with everything. And just also telling myself, you do what you can, as long as you do what you can, when you can, that's all you have control over. So like I said, it can be heart-wrenching understanding and discovering the things that, go on at home or students have been through. It's really humbling in a sense,
Yeah, sure.
and eye-opening. Um, and it's hard. It's really difficult. But going back to those coping strategies or self-care, leaning on colleagues and talking to other colleagues and such, who kind of deal with the same thing or similar things or the same students even, is very helpful for me at least. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I have another really good question that I know a lot of the answers to here. So one of my students asked, what did you do specifically to keep your students engaged during the Zoom year when we were?
Oh my gosh, I ate disgusting food for them.
Yes, you did.
I did an active listening lesson and I had them like mix all the ingredients that I had in my fridge and pantry, and I ate like salty chocolate mustard. It was disgusting. I did like,
Yep,
I felt
you
like I was
did.
competing with YouTube. So I like put on, a show for them. And I still do in the classroom now because I'm still competing with YouTube and their tablets and, their fidgets and stuff like that. So, teaching is performing.
It is. Most
Performing
of
art.
it, I say the same. So when I'm
It
teaching
is.
in front of my class, I feel like I'm doing like a song and dance for them as well. It's the same.
Always.
Yep.
Yeah.
I 100%.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like, who can sing the loudest?
True, very true. In your class, yes, absolutely. All right, I am going to ask you, let's go for 2 more questions, okay? And then I will let you off the hook because I thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming in to do this. Many of my students are interested in teaching, especially in special education. So it's really nice to hear from somebody like you. Also, just so you know, if you're open to it, if my students have other further questions or can connect with you, is it okay to give them your email as well?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Great.
You
So
can give
yeah,
them my Fenton one because that I respond to that more quickly.
I will give them your Fenton email because in general, I think it's really nice for them to have somebody to touch base with or somebody to ask specific questions to if they
Sure.
had further ones that we didn't have time to get to on here. But it's also nice for them to have a contact, even later, as somebody to kind of bounce questions off of and interview if they needed to
Yes, yes,
on
I
their
love
own.
that.
All right, let's see. I'm gonna get 2 more questions for you. This is a very good question. What do you wish was different about your job?
A few things. My first thought is, my first thought is curriculum, like how curriculum is presented. And for me specifically, in my situation, curriculum is weird. Like I said, 3rd through 5th grade, the curriculum is so off and what I'm supposed to be, delivering, this type of instruction I'm supposed to be delivering, and it being differentiated or varied per student learning and all this kind of stuff. So to make my life easier, my job easier, that was my first thought. But my beyond that thought, that I always think about is collaboration with other teachers and having the time to, on a weekly or bi-weekly basis to have time and collaborate about lessons and management systems, and not just go over, grade level meetings where we talk about testings coming up and get your report cards in and all of the, housework stuff. No, I want to get into how do you support your kids? What types of things are you adding? What visual supports? What's going on, so that we can collaborate, and maybe what works for me would also work for you, and that type of stuff. So that's what I would want to be different.
I think that would be amazing too, if there were, if there were 48 hours in a day, right? That we could actually do those kinds of things. But yeah, I think you're right. It's
Or one less day of work.
well, wouldn't that be
California.
nice? A 3-day weekend every week, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that
I'd
would,
say like 4-day work week, but I mean 4 days for the kids, 5 days for teachers still, but 1 day no kids. And that day we can just
oh man, how much more
collaborate.
you'd get done? It'd be awesome.
And how much more learning we'd get done.
I'll probably put all of your IUPs on that day though. Watch.
Right? Of course.
So,
Of course.
hey, but yes, you know what, I
Three-time
think,
meetings.
even as a newer professor, for me, I wish there was more collaboration with a veteran professor as well, and to be able to guide you and to help you, because that's how we become better educators, right? Is learning from folks that have done this and teaching us new tricks, right? So I wish there was a little bit more time for that as well, even on the college level too. So I hear ya. All right, last question is going to be a me question, not these students' questions. If you had your 5-year plan in your mind, what would you want to accomplish in the next 5 years professionally for yourself?
Oh man, that's a tricky question right now.
I know.
That's a tricky question, especially right now when it's like a month left of school, when it's like kind of crazy, very crazy. I rethink some of my career choices. No, but in all seriousness, my 5-year plan. See, I know I'm a planner, but I don't plan beyond that. I'm like wherever it takes me, because if you asked me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have even thought of starting a program with you, like being asked to be a teacher in a brand new program. So I know personally and professionally that I have a lot to offer and a lot that I still need to learn. So in these next few years, I know that I'm still learning where I'm at and wanting to kind of perfect and then move on. My hopes, always used to be admin, but I kind of realized that's a little bit more middle management. My hopes goes up to, again, changing that education system how I can, if I can, or if I have to do it on my own, we'll see about it. I don't know, Nikki. At 5 years, we'll see. But it stays within education. It definitely stays within, trying to motivate students and enlighten students, and at any age. So,
and I think that's the realest real though, is that I always ask my students what their 5-year plan is, right? And most people kind of like, wow, I have no idea. And that's okay. And that's actually a good thing, is that you can't plan 5 years ahead. There's no way. And I think, like you said, there's going to be bumps in the road or things that you just don't expect happening, or like different opportunities that may arise. And I think that is what I want my students to take away from why I asked you that question, is that your process is going to be totally different, and their process as well. As they're going through these careers, some of them might want to become teachers later, or teach for a while and then do something later. And I think that that's the beauty of this field and of what we do every day. And it's an evolving process. If we stop teaching and learning ourselves, then we're done, right? So I think it's an interesting thing. And I'm curious to see how your next 5 years unfolds, but also too, for my students, for them as well, to see what their next 5 years are going to look like. So yeah.
Well, good luck to you all, class.
Yes, I agree. Good luck.
Whenever you have a question, or if you're on the fence, like, oh, do I teach? Oh, I will always say yes, become that teacher. It's such a wonderful, wonderful job, and I would not take it away. I know there's more, but I love it.
Yes. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Emily, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Nikki.